Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and while the Switch may be in its twilight year, there's still plenty of exciting games coming to the eShop from independent developers, and that's what we're looking at today. So hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see a video like this for August, and let's take a look at the 8 notable Nindies coming to the Nintendo Switch in July 2024. And first up, let's get a little silly. Ponos is a Japanese developer that's been around since 1990, but they really hit their stride back in 2014 with the release of Battle Cats, the mobile tower defense game that's still going strong today and has over 90 million players. I'm not sure if it's to celebrate the game's 10-year anniversary or what, but on July 2nd, they ported the game to the Switch and released the Battle Cats Unite for $19.99. So, a big caveat here is it's a free-to-play mobile game with tons of microtransactions, so I'm not sure exactly how that game works when the game is $20. But let me tell y'all, either way, Battle Cats is the sh**. It kinda reminds me of PlayStation's Patapon series, just without the rhythm game elements. Basically, you piece together a team of cats with weapons and send them marching against the opposing team. You level up and build a team that includes defense, attackers, cats that can buff other cats, and all of that kind of good stuff. And then as you battle, you keep making them stronger and unlocking new cats with weapons. The game is addictive as hell, and hilariously cute too, so I wholeheartedly recommend it. I just don't know if it's better to play on your phone for free or pay $20 to unlock multiplayer, minigames, and hopefully most of the microtransactions. For now, I'll say if you're interested, start with the mobile game, but if, like me, you've already poured dozens of hours into said mobile game and the microtransactions are reined in enough, the Switch port could provide a fun new way to play. And sticking with Japanese developers who have been around for decades, Nihon Falcom is one of the longest still-running game developers, having been originally founded in 1981. And for most of their history, they've been best known for the Ys series. That is until a smaller team in the already small company of 65 employees released a little strategy RPG for the PSP back in 2004 called Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky. That kicked off a slew of sequels, which resulted in a massive series of RPGs, leading up to the July 5th release of The Legend of Heroes: Trails Through Daybreak for $59.99. If you've watched this series from the sidelines and have always wanted to check it out, I'm talking about this entry today because it's actually the beginning of a brand new story arc, so it's a great time to dive in. My understanding is that it works like this. Trails in the Sky ran across 3 games, then Trails from Zero created the so-called Crossbell arc, which also included the 4 entries in Trails of Cold Steel, all of which culminated in the 2020 release of The Legend of Heroes: Trails into Reverie. This latest entry is considered the halfway point of the whole saga, and a fresh start of sorts. You play as a bounty hunter who gets in way over his head after uncovering a conspiracy spanning the entire country, and the gameplay is a clever mix of action and turn-based combat, with a bunch of hack-and-slash encounters that slow down when it's time to use your bigger spells and abilities. If you haven't paid attention to this series before, it is very highly regarded, and this latest entry seems primed as a pivotal point for those who feel like they've missed out. So if you're a fan of RPGs and are looking for something new to sink your teeth into, The Legend of Heroes: Trails Through Daybreak is a title you should definitely consider. Then on Thursday, July 11th, we see the first release by Somber Pixel as they port their critically acclaimed 2021 release of Night Reverie to the Switch for $14.99. It's a heartwarming yet spooky-ish game about a kid who wakes up in a dreamlike world where all kinds of weird things are happening in his home. Your job then is to piece together clues to figure out exactly what it is that's going on. The gameplay draws clear inspiration from titles like One Shot and Undertale, while mixing in some point-and-click adventure-style puzzle solving among a variety of mini-games that take place instead of standard RPG combat. And those who have played it all seem to really dig it. If you like solving puzzles, piecing together mysteries, and you're into the kind of tone and character development that stems from the titles that inspired Night Reverie, there's a good chance you'll find a lot to like here. Crescent Moon Games, who's had a hand in titles like The Deer God, Neodori Forever, and Moonraider, teams up with Ratalaika Games on Friday, July 12th to release Death Crone for $4.99. Like most Ratalaika releases, it's a simple, no-frills premise that should keep you busy for a weekend, and I happen to really like the concept for this one. It's an 8-bit action-adventure where you play as a mech for combat, and then as a kid who jumps out of the mech when there's platforming or puzzle-related challenges. And this Blaster Master-like inspired romp seems to do the genre justice. From the footage I saw, I do worry that some of the bosses could be a bit too damage spongy for my tastes, but with light RPG mechanics and upgrades available for your mech, maybe you can whittle that down over time. Either way, it's only $5 and could serve as a nice palate cleanser if you happen to be checking out any of the other games that we've just covered. And while for me, the big release of July is coming up here in just a couple minutes, for most, the long-awaited sequel to Darkest Dungeon is the game that'll suck up the most of their time during the waning weeks of summer. Darkest Dungeon 2 has been in PC Early Access for well over a year now, and by all accounts, it delivers on every aspect of what is widely considered one of the best games in its genre. With a grotesque Lovecraftian tone full of plague doctors, demons, and all kinds of 19th century horror mainstays, Darkest Dungeon is a turn-based deck-building dungeon crawler with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements!
You know you missed that.
This time, instead of gathering your party to head down into a dungeon, the biggest change you'll immediately notice is that your party now sets out on a wagon, road-tripping across the decaying landscape in an attempt to stop the looming apocalypse. For those familiar with the first entry, take everything about the game, the difficulty, the complexity, the punishing mockery of so-called luck, and of course the gratification from rare victories, and expand them all in every way imaginable. To be clear, this game is not for the faint of heart, but in a way, it's so punishing, it can honestly become pretty funny watching your party of 4 determined, battle-hardened warriors end up terrified, cursed, and begging for mercy as they run away. If you've never played Darkest Dungeon, the original is constantly on sale for $10 or so, and is well worth your time, so you should definitely start there. However, if you already know what you're in for and can't wait to get your teeth kicked in, Darkest Dungeon 2 comes by way of Red Hook Studios on July 15th with a launch week discount of $33.99. The very next day, on Tuesday the 16th, we get the kind of game that I almost never play, but took a chance on a couple years back, and don't think I'll ever forget. I'm also kind of surprised we're talking about it because I could have sworn the Switch already received a port of Dutch studio Kyoken Interactive's Deliver Us the Moon, but, well, here we are. So, the game takes place in the not-too-distant future where humanity has exhausted all of the Earth's natural resources and now relies on lunar colonies to deliver energy back to Earth. Of course, something has gone awry, and after multiple attempts, humanity is running on fumes and decides to send you on one last trip to the moon in a desperate attempt to restore the failing equipment. Should you fail, humanity will begin to go extinct, so, no pressure. The game is very narrative-focused as you're given instructions and goals over your radio, but then the gameplay is a mix of first- and third-person tasks that range from puzzle-solving to navigating anti-gravity to driving a couple of different vehicles across the surface of the moon, and the sound design here is very impressive. It just might be my favorite part of the game. The music only comes in when it really punctuates the tone, otherwise you're hearing the sound of your radio and the various equipment you're repairing among the vacuum of space. If you're the kind of person who holds your breath while watching a movie when the character on screen is underwater, that's the kind of tension you'll constantly find yourself in. Personally though, I love this kind of grounded, near-future sci-fi, and that's exactly who the target audience should be for this game. The premise, the wide variety of gameplay, and ultimately the payoff at the end made this the kind of experience that, after the credits rolled, I just kinda sat there and stared at the screen for a few minutes. You're only gonna get about 6 or 7 hours out of it though, and there's not much in terms of replay value, so I could understand not jumping in immediately at its $20 price point. However, if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, I encourage you to check out the first entry in this growing series and keep your eyes peeled for a port of their second entry, Deliver Us Mars. Next up on Wednesday the 17th, and a big reason why I decided to make this video, is one of the games that I put more time into than most others in 2023. And I just really wanted to tell y'all how great Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate actually is. It's developed by Super Evil Megacorp, which is an awesome studio name, and it releases for $29.99. If we want to be super reductive here, I don't think a single one of you would play the game and then push back even a little bit if I told you that it's just multiplayer Ninja Turtles Hades. I have no idea what the storyline is, despite playing it for over 45 hours on Apple Arcade last fall, but you start in the Turtles' sewer base, pick a turtle, and then select a couple of pieces of gear, elemental abilities, maybe buy some upgrades, and then set out on your run. Each run takes about 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll see you go through several screens of battling enemies before meeting a mini-boss, and then finally the region boss. The selection of lore here is great too, because of course you get Bebop and Rocksteady, and the final boss is Shredder.
Sorry if that's a spoiler.
But there's also a handful of deep-cut surprises along the way that I wouldn't want to spoil for the longtime Turtle fans. At the end of each room, you select the next room based on its offered upgrade, tackle the occasional challenges, or visit shops to spend your currency on things like healing, buffing, or buying currency for the permanent upgrades you can purchase in between runs. Each turtle has their own arcade-like combat that's honestly pretty button-mashy, but just like Hades, it's a constant dance of weak attacks, ranged attacks, charge attacks, and the ever-present dodge roll, which you will be using a lot. In fact, my only real complaint about the game is that once you've cleared a few runs and you're maybe 15 or so hours in, the enemies just become major damage sponges, so the late game battles are just kind of a war of attrition. Though that is easily overcome if you're playing with others via the local or online multiplayer. It's been a while since I've played a roguelite where I didn't mind dying because the gameplay was so much fun and starting a new run meant picking different characters or trying out new gear. And I play a lot of these games, so consider that high praise. At the end of the day, Splintered Fate is a must-play for the TMNT hardcore, as well as those who can play through it in multiplayer. The late game can be cumbersome, and it doesn't exactly bring anything new to the genre, but what's here is a polished and well-executed entry that fans of the series and the genre should enjoy. And finally, my friends, we wrap up today's video with the final noteworthy Nindie of July, Skim, which has a clever premise, a unique style, and an interesting backstory. The developer, Ewood Vanderwerf, started working on the idea of a shadow finding its way back to its human owner as a school and internship project back in 2020. It started attracting attention thanks in large part to its immediately striking art style, which was actually born from the developer's desire to make a game for people like him who are partially colorblind. As Skim was shown off both online and at trade shows over the past 4 years, the consistent feedback loop resulted in a game continuing to expand in scope, and even receiving a story which plays out as you navigate from one shadow to another, told entirely through the in-game environment. This level of simplicity, with very little instruction, no button prompts or UI elements on the screen, and narrative that occurs without interrupting the gameplay, all eventually drew enough attention that Ewood received the support he needed to turn his little school project into the game he always dreamt it could become. So that brings us to the present, with Skim launching via publisher Extra Nice on Thursday, July 18th for $22.49. It's one of those indie games that defies genre conventions, yet with one 5-second glance, I think most people could get an idea of what to expect. You watch the world, navigate the changing shadows, and when there's no path forward, that means there's some kind of puzzle which will open the way forward. It's relaxing, thought-provoking, and should bring about 4 to 5 hours of shadow-chasing goodness. So how y'all been? I know it's been a while, but we're getting things back on track and should be posting more regularly going forward. See anything today that tickles your fancy? Be sure to let me know down in the comments or come chat about it with us over on the Nindie Nation Discord. July had quite a few sleeper hits, so please let me know if I missed anything. And August is looking even better with titles like Cat Quest 3, SteamWorld Heist 2, and a game I've been obsessed with recently, Trinity Fusion. So keep your eyes peeled for our next video, because we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next time, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 209, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.